Well, it takes people through college. They can be up to 60 years old, and they don't know what to do with their lives. Josh Pastner is not the case. He is a coaching prodigy, a guy who knew when he was super young what he wanted to be in life, and that was a basketball coach. And he is currently the Georgia Tech head coach, and I got to know Josh a bit when he was in Memphis. I'm Bryan Fenley. Josh, thank you so much for doing this. How many Zoom calls have you been on in, say, the last 4 months ever since we've been in this state of events in our world?
No, Bryan, well, first of all, good to see you. And I wish we could see each other physically,
I know, right?
more than through Zoom, but good to see you. Good to hear from you. I've done a lot of Zoom calls. I mean, I really wasn't a Zoom guy
Yeah, me neither.
or a Zoom person prior to all this. And now I've become just so accustomed to being on as many Zoom meetings or Microsoft team meetings, whatever it may be. I've done a lot. So it's been good. It's sort of kind of a new way that I have learned on how to communicate.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, there's nothing like in-person interaction and being around people. That being said, based on what kind of where we're at right now, this is the best way of communicating. And it will be interesting once, I don't know if there'll ever be a new normal, but or there'll be normal, should I say?
Yeah.
But once we kind of get back to, resemblance of you're back into a normal routine in a way of school, work, things like that, athletics. Do you continue to do your meetings
That's a good point.
via a Microsoft Teams or a Zoom, or do you go back to being in person? I mean, I think there's a lot of those questions still to be determined and answered as we continue to progress moving forward.
Josh, how much do you feel like you can get your point across through those Zoom meetings, and how reciprocal are the players in understanding what you're trying to convey?
It's a good question, Bryan. I mean, it's been interesting. Again, to really have the best team meetings, I really believe to have them in person. You can
Sure.
you have a better you can feel the passion. You can see it. Visualize it in a way. Obviously, when you're dealing with technology, which is outstanding, there is also, you could have issues with having some glitches. Freezes on the computer and some things that. I mean, how many times has it happened where you're ready to make a strong point, all of a sudden, like you drop the Zoom call, type deal, and it's happened to us in recruiting a lot too. So just because of whatever the situation may be, and so yes, you can get your point across, but again, I think and I'm just using in basketball.
Yeah.
Our guys are so used to being around each other, competing. You've covered sports, and you know the deal. And you still cover sports. People are when you're just so used to just competing.
Sure.
And in our sport, where it's such a contact sport, and to not have that contact, both whether it's on the floor or even together, it's fine early on. But I think guys, like I've had multiple guys tell me, Coach, I want to go back I will never miss another class again.
Wow.
Like, I'll never, Coach, I took it for granted. Like, I want to go back to being in the classroom. Like, I want to go back to being in class. Coach, I'll be the best student. Like, I want to go back to class. And so I think all those type of things, will be different once we're back to normal in a way.
Yeah, no doubt. And hopefully that happens sooner rather than later. I read, Josh, that when you were in Arizona, you took 33 units in a semester.
One semester I did, yeah.
How did you pull this off? And I know your players, like you just said, they'll never miss a class. I got a feeling they might not, though, go 33 units in a semester.
Ryan, I don't recommend that to anybody. So, you got to be a little crazy to do that. You're in class 8 to 1 every day, basically. But I knew I wanted to I knew what I wanted to do with my life, as you had mentioned early on. Started this about the passion of I knew what my passion was. I wanted to coach. I wanted to stay involved in the game of basketball. I love basketball. And that's what I tell people all the time, that probably the number one thing that you can find in your life, because life is short.
Sure.
Life is, it goes by fast. It is fragile, and when you have an opportunity to find that passion of what you want to do, go for it. And so because of that, I knew what I wanted to do, but I also knew I needed to be serious about my academics. I needed to get obviously my degree, and I wanted to knowing that I'd be working with future student athletes, that that I could back up my words about, hey, I was very serious about my academics as well too, in a sense. Yeah, no, I got my bachelor's degree in 2.5 years
Wow.
at the
Okay.
University of Arizona, and I got my master's degree in 1 year there at the University of Arizona. So 3.5 years, both as a student athlete as well as a basketball player at the time, I got my bachelor's and master's. So really a great thing.
Josh Pastner joins us, head coach for Georgia Tech. I'm Bryan Fenley with Fox Sports Radio. Josh, so you had classmates out there partying and all this stuff when you were at Arizona, and you weren't doing that stuff. I mean, you were so in love with basketball. So when it was Friday night, Saturday night, there's the whole Greek system and life and fun to be had. Where were you? Because I feel like you were in a gym somewhere.
Bryan, let me just tell you this. I get teased about this all the time. I still get teased about this from my wife because, I really, when I say missed out, I did not, I was not involved in the party scene and or those type of even dances or going
Sure.
out, not just in college, but also in high school. I mean,
Okay.
I always felt like even when remember when the Friday night dance or homecoming or whatever it may be, I would not go because I would want to go into the gym to shoot baskets thinking, okay, while everyone else was out at dance, I would be in the gym working. And so if we met on the court, I would prevail in a sense, and I just had that, I was driven, I was self-motivated, I was highly driven, and I was the same way in college. Looking back, I probably would have liked to maybe have hung out a little more and here and there, but everything happens for a reason. And I took that path, and that path has allowed me to, I was so fortunate, lucky, blessed, just right place, right time to get the head job at Memphis, as you know, at 31, which is nearly impossible to get that type of job at that age. I got lucky, and I was at the right place, right time. But that then allowed me to become the head coach at Georgia Tech in the ACC.
Absolutely.
And part of that, you look back, maybe, and you're not sacrificing anything by not going out on a Friday night, but just more you were focused on what you want to do. Maybe that allowed a window or door to open maybe when you least expected it.
Yeah, Josh, when I was in high school, I didn't go to dances either, except you had a better excuse. My excuse was I think that if I ever asked a girl, they'd all reject me. So I'm like, why even put myself through that?
Well, you can just keep that with me, but you can tell everybody else that you were locked in on your broadcasting career.
Exactly. Whatever it is, something to help my morale. Josh, what was the happiest moment for you when I got to cover you in Memphis? What was the moment that you'll hang on to and always hold, where you were with your guys and you just felt really something special, something you accomplished?
Bryan, it's a really good question. I first of all, let me just say this. I loved my time at Memphis, and this. I try to tell people this. Memphis is a very unique job.
Sure.
Especially the University of Memphis men's basketball position. It's in a 30 to 50 mile radius. It's very similar to being the coach of the Yankees or the Green Bay Packers or just because there's so much emotion, the emotional investment in that city of people of all walks of life.
Mm-hmm.
And so good, bad, or indifferent, everyone comes together for basketball there. So it's a really powerful job being the head coach sitting in that chair at the University of Memphis. There's a couple things that I remember. We had great staff and great players. We won a lot of games. I remember my second year when we beat UTEP in the championship in the conference tournament to go to the NCAA tournament, because there was so much negativity all year long about our team. We had a great recruiting class coming in. It was we were young, and for us to win and go to the tournament was just an incredible. I remember I remember it was a morning game in El Paso, and just that rest of that 2 days, I was on cloud nine because it was such a relief off my back to do that. I remember when we like one of the great accomplishments is being able to go when we went undefeated in Conference
Yeah.
USA and then won the conference tournament. To be able to do that was just an incredible feat. I could look at some different things. I mean, look, in my 7 years there, we never lost 3 games in a row.
Yeah.
And I mean, we had so many times where we won big games. And so, I mean, there's not enough. There's not one single time. I mean, heck, Brian, I remember when we were playing our first exhibition game when I was a coach there.
Yeah.
I treated that like that was a national championship because I did not want to
Wow.
lose that sucker.
Yeah.
So it was just an incredible time. 7 great years. I've loved there all 7. There was highs, there was lows, obviously, but I didn't take a day for granted being there at Memphis.
Josh Pastner with us, Georgia Tech head coach. I'm Bryan Fenley with Fox Sports Radio. Josh, when you become more and more experienced as a coach, and look, you've had amazing experience for so many years, how do you let yourself process wins and losses directly after games? Take us into the psyche of Josh Pastner following a loss where you're trying to process it and stomach it, as opposed to what a win would look like through your brain afterwards.
Brian, I'm really glad you asked that. Let me just
Yeah.
tell you this. Here's how I viewed it, and I'm better today than I was when I was at Memphis.
Sure. Yeah.
I've learned better on how to handle wins and losses better. But let me just tell you this: when people used to I would drive people in Memphis up the wall. When I would say this, I just want to hug a win. I just want to hug a win. And it would drive people up the wall still to this day, even at Georgia Tech, because winning, there's nothing like it. And that's really what you want to do is how can you physically hug a win? That's what it's like. There's just no feeling like it. And you're in such adulation and the enthusiasm, the feel good, and it might just be in your own little bubble.
Sure.
But because there's nothing like with the head coach, no one takes losses harder than the head coach. No one feels the wins greater than the head coach. And so, and basketball is such a fine line determination of a make and miss game. And you're based on 18 to 23-year-olds in college to sometimes have your happiness or sadness determined based on that. Now, I have matured as a head coach and have not been so high and low on wins and losses. But I'm just telling you, Brian, I don't take one win for granted. And I don't care if it's an exhibition game.
Wow.
Winning's hard. Winning one game is hard. Everyone's well coached. Everyone's got great players. You know how many times I used to say that that's my favorite, and it's the truth.
Yeah, it's truth.
When you win, the feeling of just the enthusiasm is just there's no words to describe it. However, when you lose, the amount of lack of sleep, the sickness in your stomach, the replay of over things in your head lasts for about 24 to 36 total hours. After then, it kind of goes away, but it is a pain that I can't fully describe.
Yeah.
That is just it's a feeling and emotion, but it means that you're so invested into it. If you didn't feel that on either direction, you wouldn't have that feeling. But that's that's part of being a head coach, is that passion, that feeling invested into your team.
Yeah, that's just an accurate depiction of your own passion. Like, if you did not have the passion and the love of what you did, and you didn't feel those feelings in a loss, I would be worried. You would too. It's like, well, how invested, as you said, how attached am I into this program? And look, we know coaches they can be a jukebox for motivational sayings, but what is the one that you always go to, Josh? Is there one in particular during tough times that you will always hold on to and say, yes, this is right. I need to live by this. I need to coach by this?
Well, you know what, Brian, here's how I think on motivation. Everybody likes motivation. Who doesn't like motivation? When you or I could hear someone speak and we're going to be charged up for a few days.
Yeah. A rah-rah speech. Yeah.
But that goes away. and it's sort of it's sort of like, where you can pump somebody up multiple times, but eventually it wears itself out, and it can only sustain for so long. The only way to keep, for someone to want to be able to sustain motivations is when, and it's not just when things are going well, it's when things are not going well, is you have to be self-motivated. You have to be internally driven. And it's hard to be internally driven if you have no passion of what you're doing, and maybe there's something that you don't even like that you're doing, but you just are driven because you want to be great at whatever it may be that you're doing, just because you have that drive inside. So I think first and foremost there is no saying that will work when things are not going well if you're not internally driven, self-motivated. I use the word motor, having a motor, having your pep in your step, and seeing the glass as overflowing, not half full, but overflowing.
Interesting.
And I really think that is a mark. Now I use a term. My big saying is, do your job. I talk about that all the time. Doing your job, and doing your job doesn't just mean when things are well. You got to do your job when things aren't going well.
Sure.
So I'm not, we use the term, I'm big about I know the military, the Navy SEALs have used this a lot. And I think it's a great saying. It's about, the pain of regret sure outweighs the pain of discipline, in a sense, you know what I mean? And so,
sure.
And we use that with our teams, like, hey, don't take a shortcut, because the regret you would have later on, it's not worth it than just doing it right now and having the discipline to do it the right way. So, but I just think during some tough times, Bryan, it's we all go through tough times, and especially when I'm talking about time with our job or whatever it may be, and you're taking some losses and things, or you're on a losing streak. You got to be self-motivated. You can't have the woe is me syndrome. Can't play the victim game and saying, I feel bad for myself. Everyone because nobody wants to hear it.
Yeah.
And I use that a lot too. That's one of our rules. No woe is me syndrome. We can't, no woe is me. So if we lose 20 in a row, we've got to, and it starts with the head coach. Man, I got to come in that next day in practice and I can be demanding, but I got to be energized, enthused,
definitely
upbeat. And that's got to be the same if we win the game.
Yeah.
I can't be up and down like a roller coaster. I've got to be at a high level every single day, regardless of the outcome.
Josh, why do you think your personality type, even when you were a teenager and you're already coaching AAU and really beginning to rise the ranks, that it boded so well for you being a coach, that your personality type was exactly the textbook definition for how to make it in the coaching ranks?
Bryan, I'm a real, it's interesting. I'm a real positive guy. I believe in positive attitude. I'm a motor guy. I believe in, just enthusiasm, a pep in your step, motor, all those type of things. I don't do well with negativity. I don't do well around that. And so I'm a guy that maybe just mentally, no matter the circumstance or situation, I foresee the positive out of every single thing, every single time. And people say, well, how do you get like that? I don't know how to get like that. Was I raised like that? I mean, my dad was a positive person, but my mom was more tell it like it is, and I'm not just some rah-rah guy like, hey, rainbows and butterflies. It's about, you're seeing the goodness of people. You're seeing the positive. You're seeing just and so I think that allows you to really stay encouraged, to really stay upbeat, to continue to stay enthused. And Bryan, in life, in anything you do, it's all going to come down to attitude. It's really that's why the mind is the most powerful computer there really is, of any computer, and we barely tap our mind, and that's why we talk about all the time. We have all of our coaches and strength coaches, and to get our physical build up and to get the guys faster, quicker, stronger. But sometimes I think, man, do we just need a mind coach? And I'm being serious about that. Like, just because for basketball, the best players are the ones with the most confidence. It's not like, yes, the ones who are great talents but don't have great confidence don't end up you look at the ones who say, man, the potential wasn't, he never lived up to the potential. It's not because he didn't live up to the potential. It's because I don't feel that individual maybe was ever as confident as needed to be to get towards that potential. And that's why I'm continuing to think about and saying, do we need more with, the mental aspect, the mind part of it, more so than always the physical part.
Yeah. It's like, in the dating game, a guy's very confident, he'll probably get the second date,
Yeah.
and I wish that that applied
But you can be confident in a way without being arrogant.
That's true.
And you can be confident in having, and confidence can come from being prepared, knowing that it's hard to have confidence if you haven't worked hard at something. So if I asked you, Bryan, to come speak at this group tomorrow and you had no idea what you were speaking about or
Sure.
who the audience was, you might feel a little awkward, unconfident, and might not come off, and that's not because you couldn't do it. It's just because you don't know who you're speaking to or what's it about. And but if you were prepared for it, you would feel confident. So a lot of times, a lot of it's preparation. A lot of it's, again, is this. So again, it doesn't have to be an arrogancy where you just think you're better than everyone. And some of the great ones have that and they're able to do that. But a lot of it comes down, have you put are you, I like to say the proper preparation prevents poor performance.
I like that.
And before you go into a broadcast, I mean, you would be prepared. You just wouldn't show up.
Yeah.
I mean, and so I think all that helps with the confidence part of it. With at the same time continuing to stay, humble and having humility about yourself.
Josh, really appreciate your time. Got a couple quick questions because I don't want to hold you. I know you got 1,000 things to do today. What's one example when you were beginning to gain a foothold in the coaching ranks where you noticed that your ambition really started to pay off? Like a specific story when you went above and beyond the call of duty to see your dream through and it led to some neat opportunities, a cool little side story or such.
Well, I'll just give you one. I wrote a letter to every single Division I, Division II, Division III, NAIA Division I, and NAIA Division II schools in America. Over 1,000 personal handwritten letters.
Yeah.
And because this was when I was a senior in high school, going to my senior year in high school, because I wanted to, go to a college, walk on, and I thought I was a good high school player, but I probably wasn't good. But I wasn't good enough to play in the NBA one day. And the school that took most interest was the University of Arizona.
Wow.
But over 1,000 letters I sent out, personal. I wasn't like a form and you just
sign your name. Yeah.
I mean, it was a personal written over, and it took me a lot of time to do it. But again, I knew what I wanted to do, and I got a break to be able to go to the University of Arizona. And my freshman year, we won the national championship in 1997.
Incredible year. And what's one no you've ever gotten, Josh, like through your coaching pursuits that ended up actually working out for you? Like it became one of the best things to ever happen to you?
Yeah, no, I mean, I've been told no a lot. I look back at some of the, as I mentioned earlier, Bryan, everything happens for a reason.
Yeah.
Things, when you look back, you can say, man, I'm glad this, at the time it stunk. And I was, I was feeling sorry for myself, but man, I'm so glad it didn't work out at that time.
Yeah.
Because I got a better opportunity later on. And I can remember even going for some jobs, whether it's, assistant job or even some head jobs, and I wasn't able to get them, or maybe not even get an interview or a call back. And it's just funny how things work. And then all of a sudden you don't take those, or you don't get those opportunities. And then things work out better for you in another opportunity when you least expect it. And that's kind of what happened to Memphis. There was, Bryan, this, there were people who were far more deserving than me to become the head coach at Memphis. I was at the right place, right time. I got lucky. Nobody wanted to follow John Calipari because of the success that he had at Memphis. And I was kind of the last man standing. But because of that, I got an opportunity. A door had opened for me. Thank goodness for R.C. Johnson at the time to hire me. Mm-hmm. And then it was on to me to take advantage of that opportunity. I had to make the most of it, because doors open when usually doors don't open when people are always looking for that door to open, but when you least expect it, and that's why you stay out of the game of expectations. When you least expect it, that window, that opportunity, that door opens, then it's on you as the individual, because someone's saying, here, I'm giving you a chance. I'm opening this for you. Now it's on that individual to make the most of it. And you might have a stumble here and there, but man, you've got to find your way to fight through that door, and with all passion and energy that you can.
And you're doing that. And my last question for you, Josh, why are you so confident? I look at the roster you have this year, and you've got some really nice pieces. And I know you've got a big smile on your face knowing the expectations and the level of success that you're setting yourself up for. Why are you so confident in this team this year, the Yellow Jackets?
Well, Bryan, look, when I got the job at Georgia Tech, I had said in my first day in the press conference, and I told this to our athletic director who hired me at the time, Mike Babinski. I told him the best way for us to win at Georgia Tech is going to be to get old and stay old, and it's going to take us a process to get old and stay old. I said, we're not going to be able to get yes, do I want to get the one and dones at Georgia Tech? Absolutely. But I don't believe we're going to get those right away. It's going to take us some time. We might not get those. And so we're not going to compete with just a normal freshman in this league. I've got to get to where we're juniors and seniors.
Sure.
Through 5-star player development. And that's kind of how we've positioned ourselves. And this going into this upcoming season, we've got a chance to be good because we're older. We have really good guard play. Now we got to stay healthy. And Bryan, you know the deal. The ball's got to bounce your way and all those good things. But we're an older team. We have a lot of guys back from the previous year. Last year we finished 5th in the ACC. We did things during ACC play that had not been done at Georgia Tech since the mid-'90s. And so our players have just done a great job, but we've got pretty much our whole entire team back. So this was kind of the thought process of as you continue to get older. Now, like I said, you've got to stay healthy. We're in a monster league, so you can still be good and not win games. And the other thing is we've got to have a season this year. I mean,
yes.
That's still to be determined as we've seen. Everything's just day by day, and I still think there's a lot of unanswered questions out there to see what happens with college sports for this year.
Sure. Fingers crossed, because you are a master in team building, and I look forward to seeing how all this meshes, because I looked at last year, Josh, and you really started to have that thing going, and there was the abrupt ending there with everything that happened at the end of last season. But like you said, so many pieces back, and it's all going to work out, and I look forward to it. Fingers crossed we get a season, whether it's abridged or whatnot, and we get to see you, because I'll always, Josh, think about that win against North Carolina that you had, when you were just coming up. I mean, I can't imagine how special and how much glee you had.
Well, Bryan, I mean, first of all, so my first year when we were here, my first year, we ended up beating North Carolina.
Yeah.
And we were picked to finish last.
Wow.
And it was the largest underdog in ACC history going into that game at that time. And we ended up winning the game. It was an incredible win.
Yeah.
To beat North Carolina. And we were projected. There was thought process that we wouldn't win a game during ACC play all year long. My first year here at Georgia Tech. Our first game of the year, we beat North Carolina.
Yeah.
And in fact, this year we played North Carolina at North Carolina.
Mm-hmm.
And look, Roy Williams is one of the greatest coaches in the history to ever coach sports.
Absolutely,
yeah. And it's a credit to him. When you can beat North Carolina, it's an incredible deal. But they had the largest deficit at halftime ever in the Dean Dome was against us this year.
Really?
Yes.
Wow.
And so now at halftime we were up by 20 at half this year. And I remember going into halftime being like, there's too much time on there's so much, and they made a roaring comeback. Fortunately, we were able to hold on and win the game. But North Carolina, to beat a team like North Carolina, it's just amazing. And North Carolina is going to be really good next year. They've got a lot of guys back. But our first year when we beat them, they actually ended up winning the national championship.
That's right.
Yeah. So I could go around saying that we beat the national champion.
That's right. Which I think means you are the national champion. So,
Hey, I told people that. What the
yeah,
heck? You know what I mean?
let's
So
go with it.
it's just like when I was on the national championship team with Arizona when we won
Yeah.
the title in '97. I tell everyone they don't need to know how many minutes I played. I was part of the 1997 national championship team.
That is so true. Josh Pastner, thanks so much for doing this. It was fun to reconnect. Glad you're doing well. Your family's hanging in there. You're staying safe. And I can't wait to see the talent and the level of success you will have on the court this season.
Thanks, Bryan. I appreciate it. And go Georgia Tech, and we'll see you around the way.